Hello and welcome people to this tutorial video on how to install Windows 98 and Windows XP as a dual boot on an old-ass laptop. This is an Asus L3800 from around 2002, which came equipped with Windows XP Home Edition. So that already covers the compatibility with Windows XP. It will work flawlessly with any version of Windows XP, and it will work with Windows 98 with certain small adjustments. Now let's cover what we have on the bottom of this laptop. We have the speaker slots on the bottom left and right corners. We also have a huge ass battery, which doesn't work anymore, but I will work on that later. There is a hard drive which has about 660 gigabytes. Then we have RAM slot. There is the RAM slot number 1. The other RAM slot is actually underneath the keyboard. I will show later how you more or less can find it. And here is the place where you will find the processor. This one has a Pentium 4, which is 2 gigahertz, which is pretty beefy for 2002. Now, let's take a look at what we've got on the sides. At the bottom on the floor, we have my Dragon boots. And on the side here we have a non-functional floppy disk drive, or at least I haven't really tested it. The previous owner said that it didn't work anymore, so I'll take his word for it. And on the side we also have the AC port, and we also got the volume adjustment. Very handy. On the behind we have a little bit, a few more interesting inputs. Really old ones like these remote port and parallel port, which I'm never going to be using. There is also the LAN port and the modem port. Modem port is kind of worthless nowadays, but the LAN port could be used for something. There is of course the VGA port, which is very useful when you want to attach an external monitor. There is also an expansion port. It only adds inputs which are already present on the laptop. And then there is also this S-Video plus audio slot, which I'm never going to be using because I already got the VGA. And then there is also a PS2 mouse slot, which we're also not going to be needing because there is USB 1 slots on the sides, which could cover for both keyboard and mouse. And they work perfectly fine as such. Now, on the last side that we've got a DVD and CD reader. Very handy for the installation process. It's practically impossible to do it without it. We've got the microphone and speaker port, and we've also got the FireWires. Everybody loves FireWire. And on this off of the side, this is the IR port. Nobody likes IR ports. They are all awful. And at the bottom, you will also see the PCMCIA port, which works with both card bus, as shown here, and the PCMCIA 16-bit. Now, if you're actually buying expansion ports for these old laptops, make sure to always search for the ones which have this gold plate, like the card bus one, because the 16-bit PCMCIA ones are super slow. You have no idea how slow they are until you've actually seen them. This one will add two USB 2 slots, which is so useful because you can insert any pen drive and it's gonna be just as fast as the hard drive in this computer. This is a CF card, which I actually bought. Initially, I wanted it to be a replacement for the hard drive in this laptop, but it turned out that it didn't quite work the way I wanted it to work, which comes down to certain limitations in Windows XP. You can have both of them. I decided to, in the end, just use the CF card as extra storage since it's extra 60 gigabytes. It is very slow storage, so actually using it to run programs off of it is not great, but I can just keep extra copies of drivers and such in it. Now let's take a look at what this laptop has on the inside. You've got a slightly smaller than usual keyboard. Smaller as in you have to access certain functions with the function button. Thankfully, it's nicely color coded, so it's very useful. You've got several different power buttons, and the most interesting part is this laptop has a really big screen. It's like 1400 in width and 1050 in height. But I am probably going to be sticking it. I'm probably going to be sticking with keeping it at 800 on 600 because these old Windows systems are not very good at those larger resolutions. Now, when it comes to taking out the other RAM, you need to press in that little hole with a needle and then push that plate off to the left. That way, this plate comes off and you can pick up the keyboard. But before you do that, you actually need to remove a certain screw that's underneath the laptop, right over here. Otherwise, you may actually damage the keyboard if you try to take it out without removing the screw. Now, for the purpose of installation of this computer, I've actually made sure to make the RAM 1 gigabyte in size. There is a reason for it. I will get to it later. You can use more than 1 gigabyte on these laptops, but you need to add it after the installation is done. It's just easier. Now, let's get into some preparation material before you start even before you even start the installation process. First of all, if you are planning to install Windows 98 or Windows 95 for some reason on your machine that isn't necessarily from 98 or 95, I would strongly recommend that you read through this little forum post. It's not very little, but it is very, very informative. It covers what kind of processors will work with Windows 98 or 95. Well, just 9X in general. What kind of restrictions the system has. Like, for example, how Windows 95 cannot use drives that are bigger than 32 gigabytes, which is, well, kind of relevant, and how Windows 98 works natively with sizes up to 137 gigabytes. There are ways to extend that, but I do not particularly care. Any CDR, CD, DVD-R drive is gonna work, no problem. Same with floppy disk drives. Here is a very, very important little thing. When it comes to Windows 98 Special Edition and Millennium Edition, you have to remember that this system cannot support more than 1 gigabyte of RAM. It will literally kill itself upon startup, as described here. It will continuously reboot your computer unless you added a certain file, which is system.ini, and added certain values. My computer currently does not exceed those, but I will need to actually do that after the Windows is installed before I install any more RAM into it. You can do it via command line, but for some reason it didn't work for me. And the rest about what kind of graphics cards work, what kind of sound cards work, etc., etc. I should mention that whenever you're picking a laptop in order to game on it, which obviously that's probably going to be the reason why you would do that, I would highly recommend that you specifically search for one that has a non-integrated graphics card, because integrated graphics cards straight up suck. They will really tank your performance. Mine happens to have a 32 megabyte graphics card, specifically designed for mobile computers, which is just okay. It's perfectly okay for everything that I will want to use it for. Now the second step of the process is getting your Windows 98 and Windows XP ISOs. You can use original ones, of course, if you still have them, but if you don't, then you can find them online, no problem. One important thing, in case you are planning to install Windows 98, you do not have a floppy disk drive, which I imagine most people won't, it is important that you pick this specific version, OM Full, because as they state here, OM Full, only OM Full version is bootable. Normally, for every other version that you will find here, except for the OMs, of course, well, OM Fulls, you will need to have a boot floppy disk drive, a floppy disk, and the installation CD, which, well, not gonna be ideal. Of course, you also need to check if the BIOS of your computer allows to boot from a CD first and not just the floppy. Thankfully, all of these places also supply you with the serial codes. Otherwise, you would not be able to install those systems, as you can see here. This one is from archive.org and this one is from winworldpc.com. You will find them within the first two results on Google's. And thirdly, then the next thing to look through is this instruction, which I found somebody looking to install Windows 98 and Windows XP, so exactly what I wanted to do, on an SD card. Now I should mention that I tried to replicate those steps with an CF card, which supposedly is supposed to work basically like a hard drive, except, well, like an IDE hard drive, except it's essentially solid state, so it would load things a lot more efficiently because it doesn't use mechanical parts. It didn't work for me because Windows XP specifically has a very weird restriction where removable media, so memory cards or external hard drives, will not allow you to use partitions on them, which is very important if you want to install two systems. I will of course link all of this in the description of the video. But yeah, the point is, you can partition an SD card or a CF card. I have done it. However, Windows XP specifically will refuse to install anything anywhere other than the first partition, which kinda sucks. Also, if you partition it, it will not see beyond that first partition when you start it up. It just refuses to see that. And I should also mention that I had a lot of trouble actually installing Windows onto the CF cards. It worked, but there were several steps which just did not quite add up. When it comes to the rest of, as far as the rest of the instruction goes, you can just follow it with a regular hard drive, or you can try with an SD card. I do not know if that's gonna work, but I followed it with a hard drive that was built into this computer, and that worked flawlessly. I did do a few things slightly differently, but otherwise this instruction is perfect. Here is a little bit of a thing that you can do after your Windows 98 is installed. It essentially copies very important files directly onto your hard drive. If you look further into the post, it also shows how to adjust certain register elements to make future installations of drivers much easier. And here is a little bit of a cheat sheet for MS-DOS commands. We will need it in order to make Windows 98 bootable if you have more than 1 gigabyte of RAM on your computer. If you don't really have to look into this, because you will be able to do everything else you may need to adjust in the system NIE in INI file, just as a text file in the text file editor on Windows 98. But if you can't get into Windows, then this is the only way. Thankfully, it's rather straightforward. So yeah, this is all of the information when it comes to the first part. And now we will get to actual installation on the real machine. I am not going to be using a virtual machine or anything like that. I will be using the laptop that I have, and I will be recording it from the VGA output. We may have some dropped frames because the computer likes to reboot and change resolutions, which completely breaks the recording. But what can you do? So see you soon. Alright, and here we are in the BIOS. I couldn't really show getting into it because it's a very finicky process. It usually involves mashing one of the F buttons up top of your keyboard, delete or home or whatever your screen may say. It varies very much between the manufacturers and even laptop models. But once you're here, you need to move to your boot sequence, and then you need to make sure that whatever your CD drive is, where your Windows 98 CD is, that you have burned, it has to be up top, or at the very least it has to be higher than your hard drive, and definitely higher than your floppy disk drive. That is, if you're not gonna be using the floppy disk drive. If you're using the floppy disk drive, then you should put it up top according to this instruction. If you want to put something higher, you just press space and then it moves higher. But I'm just gonna undo it very quickly. So yeah, now my DVD drive is set up as the first boot option, which means that when I start up this computer, it will basically ask me if I wanna boot from it or start from the hard drive, which of course we will choose the CD-ROM. I will see you in just a moment. Now we shall start the computer with the Windows 98 installation CD. Hopefully get some visual soon. Come on, there we go. Thankfully the timer is fairly generous. And we will boot, now you can see this is the Windows 98 CD-ROM setup, and we will start it off from the CD. Now, before we do anything, if you just want to install Windows 98, just go ahead with this. Don't need to do nothing else. But if you want to do a dual boot, which is what I'm doing right now, you will want to go to the last option, which will allow you to go to command line, and we will go to FDISK. Not FDIC, but FDISK. There we go. FDISK is a DOS program that allows you to manage the disks. However, I should mention that it gets a little bit confused whenever it sees NTFS, which is the standard file format of Windows XP and everything and above. So there are no partitions because I already cleaned this disk beforehand. But if you did have any that were FAT32 or FAT16, and you would be able to delete them with the option number 3. But I currently cannot show you that because I already cleaned everything. Now, since we want to dual boot, we will want to first create a DOS partition or logical DOS drive. First, we want to create a create a primary DOS partition, and this will verify the drive. Since now I have a little bit of time, I will discuss why I even chose specifically for Windows 98 and Windows XP. I could have went for Windows Millennium Edition and XP, but I chose for Windows 98 because of higher MS-DOS compatibility. And then also I chose Windows XP because it can use a lot more RAM than Windows 98 can. So it essentially just makes games run better, the ones that will work on Windows XP. And for those that don't work on Windows XP, I will still have the way to play them on Windows 98. It will also work for those few MS-DOS games I would be interested in. As far as I know, Windows 98 doesn't have a perfect compatibility with MS-DOS, but in any case, it is better than what Windows Millennium Edition has. Besides, I don't think anybody actually likes Windows Millennium Edition. I used to actually have it on one of my computers, but the computer wasn't particularly great, so there is that. Alright, now we get to choose, do you wish to use maximum available size for primary DOS partition and make this partition active? We want to say no to that, because then, well, all of the disk will be taken up by just one partition and you won't be able to install two operating systems on it. Now it's going to verify drive integrity again, which will take a while, so I will go quiet. Alright, now that it is done verifying it, we can actually type in the amount of memory we want for our Windows 98 partition. I chose 20 gigabytes because that's just what I want. You can definitely choose a lot less for Windows 98, it's not that demanding. Yeah, that's just what I chose. Then we set it to an active partition. Enter the number of the partition. It's going to be 1. Partition 1 was made active. And now we escape FDISK and restart the computer. You can also do that using Control-Delete. And now, before we actually start the installation process for good, make sure to remove everything from the computer that you don't absolutely need. Anything that's connected into USB ports or PCMCIA ports or anything like that, just get rid of it, just to make sure that it's not going to mess up the installation process. And now, now that it is, now that everything is set up with FDISK, we can start the installation process. We press enter because why not? We have to format the drive because we don't have any choice, and I will finish the dishes. Alright, now that it is done with formatting the drive, we can continue with the installation. It will copy some files, and then we will get into the next window, which will look like this, and we shall transform it so you can see it better. Maybe I'll just make it. Oh, let's see. Fit the screen. Let's see what that does. All right. Now we can use the mouse here. Thankfully, the built-in trackpad works, but we can also just use the keyboard if you happen to not have a compatible mouse at the moment. We shall continue. Yes, the standard directory. We shall choose typical. Show the list of components. We don't need that. I mean, online services, I don't think I'm ever gonna use Outlook. Sure as hell never gonna use that. Nikodem. Next, we'll leave it at United States. Doesn't really matter. And we'll wait for it to finish. In the meantime, we will see all the kind of things that Microsoft promises us about our future experience with Windows 98. Alright, now we can restart it again, and I shall re-enable the view. Wow, we got that in the capture. We shall boot from the hard drive to continue the installation. Reactivate. Company don't matter. I accept. Like I have a choice. And now the product key. The product key thankfully is available on the website that I have mentioned before. And I will slowly type it over because I'm not a very fast typer. Alright. You can copy this over, you can just go to the website, doesn't really matter. Not that Microsoft really cares about these licenses anymore. I mean, honestly, why would they? Alright. Now the system is going to go through the basic drivers. On my previous attempt at installation of the system, I actually run into an issue here where it would continually blue screen at a certain moment. I have removed any and all devices that I could remove. in hopes that that will help the blue screening issue. Alright, I didn't get a blue screen this time. We shall let it reboot again. I will re-enable the screen. Change the resolution again, so I will let it boot from the hard drive and let's see what happens. All right. Okay, I got further than the last time, so I guess the rogue hardware was the problem. Alright, none of this is really important. I'm actually quite impressed that this computer still remembers what date it is. Restart again. Re-enable screen share. Let it start. And let's see what happens now. Not gonna be setting up any password. Alrighty. Don't show this to me ever again. I should mention that if I did have more RAM than 1 GB in this computer, system would not start and it would just hang on the Windows 98 startup logo. Then you would have to go into command line and edit the system NII file. I will actually do it right now because I do plan to insert more RAM into this computer in the future. You can actually do the same thing just by inserting this hard drive into another computer, or, well, like I said, going into command line. For me, going into command line didn't work on this installation. It worked on another one, but yeah, it's just my luck, I guess. So now we'll get onto the system.ini. It only appears as system, and we are going to edit certain values according to the instruction I have shown before. Here we need to add a max physical page, or max phys page equals 40,000. I'm going to type it very slowly. There we go. And now we are going to also add an entry in vcache, and that is going to be max file cache equals 524288, which basically is 512 megabytes just written in kilobytes. And that will prevent our computer from crashing on startup, even if there is way more RAM than it can normally support. Now, I could go on and install the drivers for Windows 98, but ain't nobody got time for that. However, I will show a certain very useful thing to do before you even get around to installing any drivers in Windows 98. First of all, we want to make a directory, options. And here we want to make directory caps. All right. And now we want to go to Xcopy, direct to our D drive, which is our CD, where currently I have the Windows 98 installation CD. We want to go asterisk dot asterisk space C Windows options cabs. Asterisk dot asterisk the opposite slash, actually the opposite slash S, and this should copy all of the cab files. That will be very useful for whatever you actually need to install any kind of drivers, because otherwise Windows will continually ask you to put in the installation CD in order to well, essentially look for the cab files. You could also make a smaller copy of this, but I really don't care. I have a lot more room on this hard drive than Windows 98 will ever use, so it doesn't really matter. This will go on for just a while longer, since it's basically copying most of the files that there are on the CD. So I'll see you in a moment. Alright, the files are done copying, but that doesn't mean we're quite done yet. What we need to do now is quit the DOS prompt and go to my computer once more. we will go to the C drive, open our Windows folder, and search for configuration. And in the config folder, we will look for a regedit or registry edit. Now we will look for H key local machine. That's going to be software. Then it's going to be Microsoft. And then we have to scroll down for a little bit until we find Windows. In Windows current version. And in current version, we are gonna have to look a little bit further for setup. And in setup, we gotta click on the setup itself and then search for source path. Source path needs to be changed, modify, to, instead of the Win98, we will insert C Windows options cabs Win98. That way it will always first look for this location for cabs as opposed to any other place. There we go. Now that everything, well, I haven't set up the updates, but it's not something that you should prioritize right now. You can always just do that later. I will eject the CD. I said I will eject the CD. There we go. And right as we're here in Windows 98, I will insert the Windows XP CD and let it auto run. Now, it's going to display in these lovely colors because I do not have any graphics drivers, but it doesn't really matter for the installation process. We'll just enjoy Windows XP in 256 colors. Unoptimized 256 colors. Now we shall choose a new installation because we do not want to change Windows 98 into Windows XP. I accept. And now I will have to pull up the product key, which I will very slowly transfer over here. All right, we go next. Again, this code is on the archive.org webpage. CD key. Advanced options. Let's see. To choose installation drive during the setup. And the other option, copy all installation files from the CD. Thankfully that option is set up by default. Don't really need no accessibility settings. In English is already set up, so this is irrelevant for us. Alright, we shall reset this computer. Oh, I wasn't expecting it to go that way, but I will just shut him down and restart him, like so. Alright, and it automatically also highlights Microsoft Windows XP Professional Setup, so that's the option that we'll want to pick. You're gonna check for that non-functional floppy disk drive and quite a few other things. Actually, there is something I would like to very slightly adjust while we're at it. Now, in order to install Windows, we shall press enter, and here, this is the partition where Windows 98 is installed. We do not want to touch that. Now that we are here, we'll want to create a new partition. Now, if you wanted to create more partitions, you would want to insert a specific number here. Well, specific number lower than the one that you're seeing here, because this is the rest of the drive. I don't have plans to create another partitions, so I will leave this as is. So the partition has been created, and I will install. You can choose for a quick format, but it's better for you to choose for a full format, even if it takes longer. Also, if you happen to choose a partition size that is lower than 32 gigabytes, you will also see options for installing FAT32 formatted partition. Because mine is slightly bigger, that option is not available. It is still possible to format a drive to be a bigger drive to be FAT32, but you have to use external tools in order to achieve that. Now that the setup is going to be formatting the drive, or rather the partition again, I will do something else. It's gonna be a while. Alright, we are currently at 99%, almost there. Almost there. There we go, 100%. Okay. I thought there was gonna be another checkup that would take just about as long. This was you're probably not gonna see it on the end video, but a formatting of this drive was way, way slower than formatting of that of that partition for Windows 98 for some reason. I mean, true, it was a bigger partition, almost twice as bigger. Yeah, okay, that's probably the reason why it was so slow. Alright, and we are almost done with copying the files. I'm saying like I was doing anything but playing on my phone in the meantime. Let's see, is he gonna ask me to do anything, or do I just... the computer will reboot, yes. Good thing that I'm here. Because then I can quickly re-enable the screen share. We're not going to be booting from the CD. We will let it boot further to Windows XP. Well, it's not really Windows XP quite yet, but we're getting there. It has changed resolution once more, so there we go. It's in lovely 480p. And now it also looks a lot less trashy than how it looked when we were starting this installation process on Windows 98. It's no longer in 256 colors. Granted, if had I installed the graphics card drivers on Windows 98, it would look a lot better. Again, just as before, I made sure to remove all external devices. Devices that aren't directly installed in the laptop for the process of installation, just to make sure that nothing crashes or gives me a blue screen, which, well, giving blue screen is basically a crash. In any case, that's what happened to me before. I had two PCMCIA cards inserted, and one of them must have caused some issues, which didn't allow Windows 98 to go past the driver installation process. Alright, and just as before, these things don't really matter. I'm just gonna... Yeah, doesn't matter. Nico, computer name is going to be XP. Don't need no password. Time doesn't matter. Alright, we'll try to see about the custom installation. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. We're not gonna be using any of this, really. Oh, at least I am not gonna be using any of the networking components. Alright, it seems that the installation has been finalized. It is rebooting once more. I shall enable the view once again. And it asks me nicely whether I want to start Windows XP or Microsoft Windows, which just stands for 98. If you do not do anything, it will always automatically choose Windows XP Professional. I'm not sure how you can change the order of these, but I would still much rather just pick Windows XP Professional as my first choice, regardless. And we shall reactivate this so we have this nice startup logo. Thank you, Windows, for automatically adjusting the screen resolution. We'll keep it like this for now. It set itself up to, I believe, 800 on 600. Yeah, that would be correct. Which is, in any case, the resolution I would have picked anyway, since it's ideal for the small screen where I wanted to get this startup music into the there we go. I don't want to set up anything. Nope, we're not going to be setting up any internet. I will never register to Microsoft with this computer, and I don't think it would do anything right now. There. And we are ready. Now, it only took about 3 hours. But yeah, now the computer is completely set up. It may give you some pop-ups. You can always deactivate those. Cancel. I don't want to do that. I know what Windows XP is. But yeah, right now, the only things that are left to do are to install the drivers, and yeah, then you're ready to go. When it comes to installing drivers, I would highly recommend that you source out whatever installation CD was available with the laptop that you get. Because otherwise it is very difficult to find those some of those drivers nowadays. Not every manufacturer keeps those on their website, and yeah, the best I can recommend is searching the internet for specific names of parts that are in your laptop. You can figure those out based off of reviews on the internet, or like technical specs that are available on various websites. And there are also some third-party software which will tell you what kind of hardware you have attached to your computer, which is currently unknown. When it comes to the order in which you install the drivers, I would recommend going from Windows 98, install all of the drivers, and then install all of the drivers for Windows XP. And after you're done with that, you're good to go with your gaming and whatnot. I would also I should also mention that Windows XP is capable of seeing both the hard drive that is for its own purposes, which is the NTFS one, which contains the Windows folder for Windows XP, etc. But it can also get into the Windows folder of Windows 98. So that is also another way, in case you were not able to boot your Windows 98, to edit certain aspects, such as the system file. And by the way, in case you're wondering why the screen is scrolling so poorly, that's just because I haven't installed any of the drivers. Once you install the drivers, it will be all dandy. But yeah, thank you everybody for watching. This was a very fun video to make and prepare for. And yeah, have a nice day.